Hamas says it has agreed to parts of Donald Trump's peace plan for Gaza, including the release of all remaining Israeli hostages, whether dead or alive. The US president has told Israel to stop bombing Gaza, quote, immediately, and says he believes Hamas is ready for peace. But a militant group says some elements of the deal need further negotiation.
Explosions over Gaza in the early hours of Saturday. It's unclear if the Israeli military has reduced its activity in response to the new developments. Some reports say operations are ongoing. But Trump, for his part, was emphatic, saying on his Truth Social platform that Israel must immediately stop the bombing of Gaza because Hamas was now ready for a lasting peace. He went on to thank all those involved in the plan.
Everybody was unified in wanting this war to end and seeing peace in the Middle East. And we're very close to achieving that. Thank you all, and everybody will be treated fairly.
Trump had earlier threatened Hamas with very grave consequences if they failed to accept by Sunday evening his 20-point peace plan aimed at ending the two-year conflict. Hamas has agreed to some elements, including releasing the hostages and handing over power to other Palestinians. But in their official statement, there was no mention of other key requirements, including their own disarmament and demilitarization of Gaza. A spokesman also highlighted other concerns.
For the Palestinians, the issue of foreign forces entering and administering the Gaza Strip is unacceptable. No Palestinian accepts it, including Hamas and other groups.
The office of Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu released a statement saying Israel was committed to ending the war based on principles it has set out before, but without addressing potential gaps with Hamas.
Right. Let's get more from DW correspondent Emily Gordine in Jerusalem. Hello, Emily. It looks like Hamas has overall agreed to the deal, but not fully. Why not?
Well, this is ultimately a yes, but answer from Hamas. And the question is how big that but will be and whether it has the potential to get in the way in the future negotiations of this deal. Now, let me break this down briefly. Hamas has agreed to release the remaining Israeli hostages in return for the end of the war and the full Israeli military withdrawal from Gaza. It has also agreed to hand over the governance, the administration of Gaza to a body of Palestinian technocrats. But it has demanded, crucially, more technical talks on some parts and political negotiations to settle the rest. And crucially, it didn't agree to disarm, or at least it's not mentioned specifically in the statement that they put out last night. But for US President Donald Trump, this is still enough for him to order to move on to negotiations and to ask Israel to stop the fighting in Gaza, which is a first since taking the office for the second time.
Right. As you say, US President Donald Trump basically told Israel to immediately stop the bombing. How has Israel responded so far?
Well, there's been a very tentative response from the Israeli side. The Israeli government, for its part, has put out a statement saying that it is preparing for the immediate implementation of the first stage of President Trump's plan for the immediate release of all the hostages. Now, Hamas officials have already told Al Jazeera that the window of 72 hours that Donald Trump put forward as a demand is very unlikely. It is very, it's in light of the realities on the ground, it just does not seem feasible. The Hostages Forum in Israel also put out a statement reaffirming that they stand with Donald Trump's plan, but also calling on Prime Minister Netanyahu to, quote, immediately begin negotiations to bring all our hostages home. So I think from their side there's a certain wariness that Hamas, A, will not release the hostages immediately without any of their conditions being met. And I think from what I've been told also that there is also growing concern that these negotiations could also be derailed by their own Prime Minister.
Right. So, Emily, it's fair to say it doesn't seem like all sides are exactly on the same page, right? So, where do we go from here?
Well, first of all, the negotiations between the two sides need to start. And the question is whether they will start ahead of the fighting, at the end of the fighting on the ground, or whether they will continue in parallel. These are things that we still have to see being worked out. Both sides will send negotiations teams. The Israelis are very focused on the Americans here. There's also a question of how much Qatar will be involved here. A lot of the Arab and Muslim states have played a significant role behind the scenes, but ultimately we just have to wait and see at this point.
Right. DW correspondent Emily Gordine in Jerusalem. Thank you. Let's get more from journalist Karim El-Gawhary in Cairo. Hello, Karim. A lot to unpack here. The political wing of Hamas in Qatar appears open to Trump's peace plan, but its military leaders are still refusing to disarm. All this while Israel continues strikes in Gaza after Trump urged an immediate stop to the bombing. How do you see this playing out?
Well, I think this could very well be the beginning of the end, although there are, of course, many question marks right now. One of the question marks is even the parts Hamas agreed to, which is the release of the hostages in exchange with Palestinian prisoners, plus humanitarian aid coming in and the Israeli army withdrawing to a certain area in order to make this release possible. Even there are many details that still have to be worked out. Where are the Israeli hostages released? Which is the point to which the Israeli army has to withdraw? How the humanitarian aid is coming in? That's all questions that have to be solved in order to basically work out the part that Hamas really agreed to. It looks to me like that you need an involvement of a third party like the Red Cross in order to help to also do the logistics, because it seems to be like Hamas is saying that some of the problems they have is to locate and access the dead bodies of some hostages. So even the first part they agreed to is quite complicated.
Right, interesting what you say. Clearly, a lot needs to be fine-tuned for anything to happen. But look, if this deal moves forward, would it effectively mean the end of Hamas as a fighting force, you think?
Well, that's not what they agreed to. They basically agreed to the first part to release the hostages. They were not talking about their disarmament. What they were talking about that they're ready to withdraw from the administration of the Gaza Strip, something they are offering since several months. And then they were saying that basically they would prefer that then the Gaza Strip is taken over by a Palestinian technocrat committee. I think they would prefer this to an international administration of the Gaza Strip. But they left all these parts quite vague. What is interesting is that they said basically, look, when it comes to the future of the Gaza Strip, we want to have we are not the only ones who are negotiating. We need a Palestinian consensus how this is going to continue. So they're giving up their mandate that they are the only ones who are negotiating. They said this needs to be done in a Palestinian consensus. This needs to be done according to international law. So that's all kinds of new things Hamas is throwing into the ring.
Right. So US President Donald Trump thanked a number of Arab countries for making this deal come together. What role did they play in making this happen?
Well, they were, of course, the ones who negotiated with Hamas to come to this point where we are and to this part they're agreeing now on. And I think right now, Egypt and Qatar are extremely busy to work out even the details of the first part that Hamas agreed upon. That's what I said at the beginning, locating the hostages, how the release is going to happen. And one of the really sticking points is going to be also the withdrawal of the Israeli army. This is something where Hamas is saying we need to negotiate more because they want to have, of course, a full withdrawal of the Israeli army. So there's a lot of things to do for the Arab negotiators handling Hamas right now.
Right. Journalist Karim El-Gawhary in Cairo. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, earlier we spoke with Fawaz Gerges. He's a professor of Middle East politics and international relations at the London School of Economics. We asked for his analysis on the decision by Hamas.
Hamas has made it very clear in the past few months it's willing to release all the hostages in return for the end of the war. What Hamas did today or just now is a very clever on the part of Hamas, because it has agreed to release all Israeli hostages, alive and dead, because this is a high priority for President Trump. But it has made it very clear there are other points that need further negotiations. What are we talking about? What are the points? It wants guarantees that Israel will pull out of Gaza permanently, as opposed to really occupying an area on the Israeli-Palestinian border. Because Israeli Prime Minister has made it very clear he will keep the Israeli army in many parts of Gaza, just yesterday. And Hamas also wants to make clear that it won't lay down its arms. It won't surrender. So Hamas now is beginning a process of negotiations. It hopes to do so. And by saying, look, I'm willing to release all the hostages, it has preempted President Trump and also has preempted Benjamin Netanyahu before the Israeli families of the Israeli hostages. So this is the beginning of a process. I think it might take a few days, it might take a few weeks, but at least from Hamas' point of view, now the ball is in the Israeli court, as opposed the burden is on Hamas. Hamas' position throughout in the past few months, 6 months, we want a comprehensive deal. We want to release all the hostages. We want Israel out of Gaza. We will not have any role in running Gaza. They want the Palestinian Authority or an Arab, group of managers and leaders. But the sticking point, Brent, is Hamas arms. Hamas has repeatedly said it will not lay down its arms. It will not surrender, because this could really mean the end or spell the end of Hamas' identity as an armed resistance movement. I think what we have seen today is that, here is I know this might come as a surprise to you. I don't think there is any change in Hamas' position. What Hamas has done is to really turn the table on its head and remind everyone that here are the priorities for Hamas. It's willing to agree to a comprehensive deal, release all the hostages in return for the end of the war, and Hamas will not have any political role in the management of Gaza, but it would like to keep its arms. The question is, will President Trump or Benjamin Netanyahu accept Hamas keeping its arms? I doubt it very much.